Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky, and today I want to talk about the Idaho 4 case. I want to talk about a theory that I've been thinking about for quite a while now, and I've talked about it a little bit in live streams. But today I really want to break it down because I really do think that it's a possibility. Now, it's a very basic idea: one perpetrator, one weapon, and a motive. So it's very straightforward, very common sense. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened, but it is something to think about. Now, before we jump into this video, I want to let you all know that this week we will begin talking about the Johnny Cashman case. And if you're not familiar with the Johnny Cashman case, it's a real head scratcher. And there's a conclusion in this case. But as we get into the video, you'll understand what I'm saying. So let's talk about this theory. If you watch my Idaho 4 videos, then you already know that I've always believed that it's a good possibility that there were multiple attackers using multiple weapons. Now we know that investigators believe that it was one attacker using one single weapon. So that's something that I've put a lot of thought into. Because, first of all, how does one person carry out these crimes? How does one person take the lives of 4 people on 2 separate levels, armed with only a knife? And second of all, why? Why would somebody go into the King Roadhouse and take the lives of 4 young adults? So let's begin with the perpetrator already inside the King Roadhouse. Now, maybe he entered through the back sliding glass door, or maybe he was already inside the house. I've said many times that I believe that whoever committed this crime possibly knew the people who lived in this house. They possibly all knew each other. So let's start out with this perpetrator in the kitchen of the King Roadhouse. And let's say that he goes up to the 3rd level because he's going into Maddie's bedroom, because Maddie is the target. Now, I believe that Maddie was alone in her bedroom. I believe that Kaylee was in her own bedroom with Murphy, and Maddie was possibly passed out. So let's say this perpetrator goes into Maddie's bedroom with the intentions of committing SA. Now, I know that investigators have said that that did not happen in this case. And I'm not saying that it did happen. But just because it didn't happen does not mean that it wasn't the original motive. So let's say this perpetrator goes into Maddie's bedroom and he's carrying a big knife. And maybe he thinks he's going to restrain her. So he decides to use his belt as a restraint. And when he pulls his belt off, the knife sheath falls from his waist. And that's how this knife sheath ended up on Maddie's bed. Now, he may not have even known that the knife sheath fell off of his belt. I mean, he's got a lot going on in his head right now. He's in the process of committing a very major crime. So maybe this knife sheath wasn't even on his mind at the time. Now, after he slides his belt off, maybe he goes to restrain Maddie, and she wakes up. And when she wakes up, she screams, or she yells, or she makes a commotion, maybe starts fighting back. So it's very possible that at this point, he feels as though he's going to have to take Maddie's life. Now, I think it's very possible that Kaylee hears this noise in her bedroom, and she hears this noise in Maddie's room. So she gets up to go and check on Maddie, because I'm sure that she's not thinking that there's someone in Maddie's bedroom attacking her with a knife. So Kaylee leaves her bedroom and walks into Maddie's bedroom. And this is when she surprises the attacker. And maybe that's why this attacker was not able to accomplish what he went to the King Roadhouse to do. And maybe this is why Kaylee is assaulted in a more physical way by this perpetrator. Maybe he's angry that Kaylee interrupted what he was trying to do. And, he wasn't able to accomplish what he set out to do. So maybe he's angry with Kaylee. And in my opinion, I believe that Kaylee was assaulted right after she enters Maddie's bedroom. I believe that it's very possible that she was assaulted right by Maddie's desk, which was right by her bedroom door. Now, if you remember, investigators cut a huge piece of sheetrock out from behind this desk. And it wasn't above the desk where you would think that there would be splatter. It was actually lower to the ground. So it was actually more behind the desk. And in my opinion, I believe that this is where Kaylee was assaulted. I think that there was a struggle, and I think that this desk was sliding around the floor. And it's what Dylan heard when she said that she heard furniture moving around upstairs. I think that was Maddie's desk as Kaylee was struggling with this attacker. Now, as this struggle goes on, I think it's very possible that Zana is in the kitchen, maybe getting her food ready, maybe getting something to drink. But I think that Zana is very possibly in the kitchen, and she hears this commotion going on upstairs in Maddie's bedroom. So she runs upstairs to see what's going on. She might not know. She might think that it's just Kaylee and Maddie messing around. They've been drinking. They're intoxicated. Maybe they're playing with Murphy. I'm sure she's not thinking that there's somebody up there taking Kaylee and Maddie's life with a knife. Zana runs upstairs and surprises the attacker. And now he's attacking Kaylee. So basically, Kaylee surprises this attacker as he's attacking Maddie. And now Zana runs upstairs and surprises this attacker as he's attacking Kaylee. So this is when I believe that Dylan sees one of her roommates run upstairs and then run back downstairs saying there's someone here. Because I feel as though Zana ran upstairs and ran right back downstairs. She was going to run straight to her room. And I think that that's what she did. But I also think that this attacker is right behind Zana. That he basically chases her down the stairs and across the house to her bedroom. Now, in my opinion, this attacker stabs Zana as she's running into her bedroom. And that's why she was found the way she was, with her head basically toward the wall and her feet toward her bedroom door. Because I think that's where she very possibly went down. Now, when she goes down, this attacker sees Ethan and is now surprised by Ethan. So maybe Ethan is in bed. And he might just be waking up. He's had a lot to drink. He's intoxicated. And the attacker turns his attention towards Ethan. Now, maybe he's having a hard time getting to Ethan, who's on the bed. And that's why Ethan has the wounds to his legs that he does. Maybe this attacker is trying to incapacitate Ethan, and Ethan is maybe scooting back on the bed or trying to get away from this attacker. But it's very possible that all that the attacker can get to is Ethan's legs. So that's why he attacks Ethan's legs with this knife before he finally is able to get to Ethan and take his life. Now, after he takes Ethan's life, he turns his attention back to Zana, because maybe he didn't take Xana's life. Maybe he just wounded her. And I think it's very possible that this is when he tells Zana, this is when Dylan hears a strange voice tell Zana, I'm going to help you. This is also when Dylan maybe hears Zana crying. And then this attacker goes on to take Xana's life. So I think it's very possible that this attacker did not go into the King Roadhouse with the intentions of taking the lives of 4 people. It seems as though he went in for his target, which was Maddie, and then he was surprised by Kaylee. Then, after he attacked Kaylee, he was surprised by Zana. Then he chases Zana down the stairs across the house to her bedroom and realizes that Ethan is also in this bedroom. It was basically a series of events which caused this attacker to have to take 4 people's lives. I don't believe that he went into that house intending to take 4 of the roommates' lives. This would explain how the knife sheath got on Maddie's bed. Maybe this attacker is not even thinking about this knife sheath because maybe he didn't realize that he was going to have one surprise after another, that he was going to keep becoming discovered. So, I feel as though he went in to the King Roadhouse for Maddie and then was discovered by Kaylee. And then after he attacks Kaylee, he's discovered by Zana. So it would make a little more sense as to how one individual would be able to commit these crimes. Because maybe he had to. Maybe he was being discovered and he had to keep going in order to keep from getting caught. I believe that right after he takes Xana's life is when he exits the house. He would obviously be exhausted. His adrenaline is pumping. And I think that he would be exhausted at this point. And that's why, as he's leaving the house, when he sees Dylan, he just decides to exit the house and leave. Maybe he thinks that Dylan has called 911. It's very possible that law enforcement is on the way. So this is just a theory that I've been thinking about because, like I said, I've always felt like there were multiple attackers using multiple weapons. And it's something I've thought a lot about is how would one individual and why would one individual carry out these crimes? To me, this would provide a motive because this perpetrator was there for Maddie. And it also would explain Kaylee's injuries because maybe she interrupted what he was trying to do. He wasn't able to accomplish what he went into the King Roadhouse for. And, he was furious about it. And this is why he attacks Kaylee the way that he did. Like Steve Gonsalves said, this is why he punches Kaylee in the face and physically attacks her with his hands. Then runs downstairs chasing Zana. And that's where he's also surprised by Ethan. So, in my opinion, this was just one instance after another. And that's what led to these 4 roommates losing their lives. Now, I still believe that these housemates knew this attacker because the actions of Dylan and Bethany just do not make sense. I mean, if Dylan saw a total stranger in their house after she's heard all of this noise, and I can tell you right now, there was a lot of noise in this house while these crimes were going on. This was not that silent crime that we heard about in the beginning. We know now that there was a lot of noise, and anytime 4 people are being attacked with a knife, there's going to be a lot of noise. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that Dylan doesn't call 911 or Bethany because Dylan has made Bethany aware that something crazy is going on inside the house. Then Dylan sees this person in their house who she says is a stranger. And if she did believe that this was a complete stranger inside the house, after she heard all of these noises, she heard crying and strange voices, then why wouldn't she call 911 unless she had some feeling of assurance that it wasn't this violent crime? You know, maybe she's giving this person the benefit of the doubt because she knows them or because she possibly knew everyone who was in the house that night. Now, another question that I would have is that when Zana surprises this attacker on the third level and this attacker chases Zana, is it possible that he was chasing Zana because he believed that she may be able to identify him even with the mask on? And that's why he chases Zana all the way to her bedroom. Because this attacker could have easily just made a left after the stairs from the third level and ran right out the back door and taken off. I know that he may think that Xana's going to call 911, obviously. But it seems as though rather than take the lives of 2 more people, that he would just choose to escape the house. But that's why I believe that it's very possible that he thought that maybe Zana could recognize him. Because why would he chase Zana across the house and take her life because she saw him and not take Dylan's life when he sees Dylan and he obviously knows that Dylan sees him? So, in my opinion, this is a possible answer for how this knife sheath ends up on Maddie's bed. Maybe this attacker has no idea until he gets to his car that his knife sheath is missing. And maybe at this point, he feels as though Dylan has already called 911. So he's not going to risk going back into this house. Now, he could have gone back because it sounds as though Dylan and Bethany didn't really know what was going on inside the house after Dylan runs down to Bethany's bedroom. So he could have had full reign of the second and third levels. He could have gone back and gotten that knife sheath. I think that it could have been a total stranger. Maybe it was someone who was watching Maddie. Maybe it was someone who had something for Maddie and thought that maybe he was going to sneak into this house, and maybe not get caught. But maybe it was someone that they knew. Maybe they were intoxicated and they thought that they were going to try to get with Maddie. It's very possible that whoever committed this crime was also intoxicated, maybe under the influence of substances. We don't know that they were clear-headed this whole time. I mean, they didn't exactly commit the perfect crime by any means. So I think it's very possible that this could go either direction. This could be a stranger who was possibly, watching Maddie, or this could be someone that they knew that thought that they were going to do this in a very sneaky kind of way. So it's just a theory. And like I said, I'm not saying that this is what happened, but it's definitely something to think about. It would definitely provide an answer as to the motive, and it would definitely provide an answer as to how this knife sheath ended up on Maddie's bed. Because I don't believe that this attacker walked into Maddie's bedroom holding the knife and the sheath in the other hand. I just don't believe that. I believe that somehow this sheath would have had to come off of this attacker's belt. I don't believe it was pulled from his belt. I don't believe that his belt broke. I believe that as he was sliding his belt off, the knife sheath dropped onto the bed. So I wanted to come on here and talk about this theory a little bit. And I'm curious about what you all think. Do you think that it's a possibility? Let me know in the comments. And thanks for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. And if you liked my video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. I hope that you all had an amazing day. We'll see you next time.